A group of Northwestern football players, Bernie Sanders and LeBron James. What do they all have in common, you might ask? Well, they all support the idea of unionization for collegiate athletes, whether it be to get them paid for their efforts, support at home, or just general wealth while they're in college and fight against their risk of injury. It's been a long debated debate whether or not college athletes should get paid for their efforts on the court and off the field. Uh, College athletes, especially at largely sport-centered colleges such as UNC, Northwestern, or Alabama, choose to play for their school to get a chance at becoming a professional in their respective sport, which NCAA puts at about a 21% chance when it comes to strictly men's football in the NCAA, which is very low percentage. I'm here to say today that college athletes should have the right to form unions and be paid for play. So let's start by defining the terms of what situation we're actually talking about. We'll start with the college athlete, or better known as the student athlete. This phrase was coined in the 1950s by, at the time, the president of the NCAA. And that term was coined so that the president would not have to pay workers' compensation to an athlete who got injured during the game. And it helped out the NCAA in their program because then they only had to worry about them as students and student athletes, not as workers, so they didn't have to pay any workers' compensation. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the NCAA. NCAA stands for the National Collegiate Athletic Association. Basically a union that is called NCAA but treats all of their workers as students so they don't have to abide by the same laws as a union. This is why a lot of athletes fight to have better pay or any pay at all in the collegiate level. Nextly, we'll go to the unions, the third piece to this pie. Unions will be described as a group coming together for the same cause underneath an employer to fight for better rights or better benefits, better pay, something to benefit them that their employer is not giving them, so they have the ability to stand up for what they believe in and for what they believe they deserve. Okay, good. So we understand the components of the situation. Now, what is the harm not paying the student athletes for their play? What can actually be difficult in that situation? So a big problem is that student athletes aren't able to afford the risk of playing college sports, the risk being injury or risking homelessness. Initially, looking into this, there was a lot of poverty. Students like to play in college. They may get scholarships, but that scholarship only goes so far as to pay for maybe their living expense, mostly their tuition and school charges. It does not always account for their living costs. When it comes to injuries, that is, the CDC actually in an article talking about sports-related injuries from the years of 2010 to 2014. And after that study done by the CDC in the college atmosphere, it found of all the schools, about 123 schools that participated in this study with all of their sports programs, 22.4% of all injuries in that bubble came from men's football. 22.4%. And essentially, what's happening with that is that college athletes are getting injured and not having support, not being able to face they're having to face the reality of fighting for their dream while also fighting the adversity of living day-to-day life. and that shouldn't be a problem. That shouldn't be a problem for student athletes. If they commit to their craft, they commit to their school, and they make that commitment, they should have the support of their school. The issues here arise due to the NCAA wanting to maintain control over their prized moneymakers, and that's their college athletes that don't cost them anything aside from what their program demands. Um, so the cause of it is the NCAA's need for control. Um, there was a case in Oklahoma that was brought to by the NCAA where a group of Oklahoma football players were eating at a banquet in 2015, and they actually ate one meal too many. They had one extra plate of food at their banquet, and many would think Oklahoma is a very big football school, um, is very well paid for, but with the NCAA's need for control, they have all kinds of violations, things that they can twist and turn and keep control with their players on. So when those players of Oklahoma ate one extra plate of food, they actually broke a violation of the NCAA's rule, saying that they could only have one serving. So they actually had to pay, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's more the value of the argument. They had to pay $4 to a charity of their choice, charity of their choosing, so that they could make up for their violation. It's almost like paying a fine in a professional atmosphere. Um, Another case is Silas Niceta, and Silas Niceta is a very special case. It's a very special case. He was a college athlete who played for Baylor. He was a running back for the football team at Baylor in 2014. He moved to his city to play football and follow his dream, but as he agreed to terms of the NCAA made it in, was homeless, and then finally accepted an apartment, accepted a living situation from one of his really good friends in there, and who said, "You're not doing well. You are couch surfing, doing your own thing, and you have no stability. Here, live in this room inside of my building. Live in this room." And when the NCAA found out about that, they deemed him ineligible because athletes who are under the NCAA umbrella are not able to take money from the outside in. They're not able to take donations because the NCAA provides what they do for them, and it's one of the violations that the NCAA has. Um, to add on to that, in 2019, March Madness brought in $1.05 billion, and none went to student athletes. Yes, it did go to the schools and the programs that participated in March Madness, but the student athletes actually saw no cash out of that. They saw no actual income out of that, um, which obviously is the biggest issue that big names are facing. Even LeBron James said in a 2017 interview that he doesn't believe that it's right. He doesn't believe that college athletes should be demanded all of this effort, and no, if they're not guaranteed acceptance into the professional atmosphere, they should be getting compensated properly for what a human does for work. If a human goes to work during college, they get paid. They go to work at a paid internship, they get paid, obviously. If you go to work at McDonald's while you're at college, you get paid, and that's known. So if you go and work as a student athlete, you should be getting compensated for this. So now that we know the problems that these college athletes face, how can this issue be resolved? And I have to say one key factor to it all has been kind of touched upon and kind of helped with by Gavin Newsom, who started it in California, which is the Fair Pay to Play Act, SB 206. And this plan of action by Gavin Newsom is actually very helpful to the students who like to use social media, and they are able to take advantage of everything at their fingertips when it comes to social media and technology. They can actually represent themselves. What the Fair Pay to Play Act does is it allows college athletes under the NCAA umbrella to use their likeness and their name to gain wealth. So they can either do branding, marketing, advertising, and they can make money for themselves. So that situation for Silas Nisita, that won't happen again. Students will be able to take payments or donations from friends or supporters that help them in their career. And that plan of action solves a lot of issues, but there still needs to be something along the lines of actual unity between all NCAA athletes and students. There's still many details that must be worked out and ironed out before the NCAA, Congress, and athletes come together. Whether college or professional can come to terms on proper compensation for student athletes. But Gavin Newsom's fair pay to play is an excellent start. Thank you.